Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the delayed meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel for the 21st of May 2020, which is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 restrictions. My name is Paul Vergotis and I'm the chair of the panel meeting this afternoon, and I'm currently streaming from the council chambers in McMahon Street, Hurstville. The panel members who make up the panel today are Ms. Helen Deegan, one of our expert members, Mr. John Brockhoff, another one of our expert members, and Mr. George Vardis, who is our community representative. These panel members are located remotely in order to satisfy the requirements of the Australian Government and the New South Wales Health Order for consistency with directions for non-essential gatherings and meetings. We are the panel who have been appointed by the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces and the Council to determine specific development applications, including the development applications that are on the agenda today and in accordance with the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. The panel acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which this meeting is being broadcast as that of the Bedigal people of the Eora Nation. I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, this meeting of the panel is being live streamed and will be made available on the Council's website. In accordance with the revised meeting protocols during the COVID-19 restrictions, interested parties wishing to make representations to the panel were requested to register a summary of their interests, being no more than 2 pages in length, to an officer to read during the meeting. A total of 8 representations were received and collated by council officers and have been forwarded to the panel. The panel have reviewed these representations and have advised that the following people will be called upon during the course of the meeting in order to make submissions to the panel, and these will be all published on the council's website. Now, I understand that we do have everyone on board now, and that being Ms. Connie Hahn, Mr. Chow Ji, Mr. William Caravellis, Mr. Bernard Moroz, Mrs. Rifat Gurgis, Mr. Assam Yosef, Mr. Asan Osa, and Mr. Jim Apostacoglu. If the oral representations contain any defamatory, discriminatory, or offensive language, this may result in the author being exposed to liability to which this council or the panel takes no responsibility for. Any part of this meeting that is held in closed session will not be recorded. The panel have received a completed assessment reports from the council staff in relation to all of the 3 applications before the panel this afternoon. The panel have also individually undertaken their own inspections of each of the development sites and the nearby localities of these sites for all the 3 matters on the agenda today. We will deal with each application in order as published on the council's website, being 57 to 59 Trafalgar Street, Penshurst, which is the development for a residential flat building. Number 565 King George's Road, Penshurst, which is a Boardinghouse development, and finally, number 28, Princess Highway, Cogra, which is the mixed-use shop-top housing development. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, panel members are required to disclose any conflicts of interest in respect to any matter on the agenda this afternoon. The relevant forms prescribed by the New South Wales Department of Planning have all been completed and a table for the council to be included in the online minutes of this meeting. No panel member has disclosed any conflict of interest in any of the matters on today's agenda. As we progress through the matters on the agenda, only those persons who the panel have highlighted as wishing to speak with, who were advised prior to this meeting, will be able to make oral presentations to the panel. The panel have received and reviewed the representations forwarded prior to this meeting, together with all submissions provided during the assessment of each development application. Each written representation received via the application to address the local planning panel form have been forwarded to the panel. I would ask those persons that are addressing the panel via Skype for Business that they speak clearly and of a volume that will project into the speakers to assist with all panel members being able to hear those submissions and those viewing the live stream, so that can be heard clearly and distinctly, so the matters can be dealt with appropriately. At this time, I remind those persons that any defamatory or discriminatory or offensive language may result in the author being exposed to liability, which I've highlighted previously. Once we've heard all the oral submissions on a particular application, we will then move on to the next application. Members of the public are free to continue to listen to the broadcast. The determination of the development applications will be made in closed session, which will not be live streamed or recorded. The determinations will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of this meeting. I will now call for the first item, which is the development application for 57 to 59 Trafalgar Street, Penshurst. And our first registered speaker is Connie Hahn. Are you there, Ms. Hahn? Hello, Ms. Hahn. Okay, it would appear that Ms. Hahn is not available.
Just Paul, with that, Connie, if you're on mute, could you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, just 1 second. Already, could you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so your name is Connie Hahn,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Please proceed, madam.
Good afternoon, panel members. I'm here with my neighbor from 12 and 12A, Galva Street. We are behind the new apartment development. So we come here to say we are against the development because I think from the last meeting we already stated several reasons about how the building impact our environment, about the noise and also the noise pollution and also the shading. So currently, I just want to point out that we are not in this industry. So we currently couldn't read those documents or those graphs very clearly. So I feel in this we're disadvantaged. We're trying to seek some advice from like engineering or the legal solicitors, but we can't find any. So basically we haven't got any advice from council, like how we can get those kind of assistance, how we can be informed about whether this building, how this building is going to impact on us. So this is the main concern. So currently what we got from the council is just to seek your own legal advice, but we don't know where we are going to seek that kind of advice. And we all have our own job and kids to look after. So it's basically we can't spend too much time like call each of the solicitors in Sydney. There are thousands of them. So I think we need to get some, we're trying to get some advice. We just ask the council, request the council, say if you can extend the decision for a while, so give us extra time to seek this legal advice. And we also try, say if anybody from the panel could give us a clearer understanding about what's going to happen. And for example, what's the regulation about the space and the height and how this building, whether this building comply or not. So we need some, we feel like we are not thoroughly informed about this. So which leaves us totally disadvantaged on that. So that's what we request. For the other reasons, I think I submitted in written form, and also I see a lot about that from the last meeting already. So this is the one point. The other one is we just got the call from the developer this afternoon regarding the stormwater sewage in the backyard. So we haven't met with HR about that, and it's not settled yet. So we need some extra time to settle this issue. before we can decide whether we support it or not. That's it for me. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Ms. Hahn, stay on the line because there may be some questions of the panel. Firstly, whereabouts are you? You're located on the higher side, aren't you?
Yes.
Right. So
are you property numbers 12 and 12A?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
12 and 12A Gover Street.
Now, have you had a chance to read the assessment report, which is on the council's website?
We do get access to that, but there's too many terms and jargons graphed in there.
Okay, so you don't understand.
Yeah.
You don't understand the assessment.
Yeah.
Okay. The assessment report has been written in a fairly plain English way, and can I suggest to you that the reporting officer or the assessment officer has certainly or thoroughly had regard to the impacts on all of the surrounding properties adjacent to the development site. And as you will see in the recommendation, it's recommended for approval. Right, so in relation to your request to extend and delay the determination, that is understood. I think the panel understands your submission about that. However, the matter is before us for determination today, so I'm not quite sure how we're going to address that issue, given that we do have a recommendation before us to approve this application. And your amenity impacts, and if you could tell us, you mentioned earlier noise pollution and overshadowing. Can you elaborate further on those impacts?
Yeah, because we
tell me a bit more.
I beg your pardon?
Can you tell me a bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. We currently have only 2 buildings behind us. There's 2 houses. So on our if we have another building there, I mean this new building is 24 units. That means we start from 2 neighbors. Now we have another 22. So there's another tall apartment is behind us, but not directly behind us. Sometimes from my house now, we can see the flashing, the TV screen flashing from the apartment already. So if there's one directly behind us, there are going to be more. And we have people doing parties in the balconies in the back. So there used to be a really quiet and peaceful neighborhood, but now because of that, I can't say people can't have parties, but it's really annoying. And it's not like you have another 3 or 4 townhouses built. It's like it's totally another 24 new neighbors. Mm-hmm. And I think you can imagine that because I invited the panel to inspect my property before the last meeting. I think they come and have a look. I think it's common sense. So, and also that's the noise pollution, because you can't tell from the plans and the graphs how close we are. Because you have to come in to have a look to feel that how close we are with the new building.
All right. Okay, I think we understand your submission. Just if you can just hold on there, and I'll ask the panel members individually I'll see if they do have any questions. Ms. Deegan, do you have any questions?
Not so much a question, but just, I suppose, a bit of a statement, and that is that probably, I don't know if you've looked into it reasonably or further, but you are located in an area where there is a certain type of zoning that suggests the types of development that are likely to occur around you. as well as the types of heights and the things that you may expect. And given that you mentioned you do have some difficulty understanding and interpreting, I would recommend that maybe you even speak to a consulting town planner who might be able to come and spend some time with you and take you through what this actually means and help you interpret some of the plans.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
where can I find that planning? I mean, council planning. We don't know where we can get that assistance from. That's the problem.
Well, the other thing is just, there are a number of planning consultants that are available. If you need help, look up the Planning Institute of Australia. That is our professional organisation. You might be able to find somebody through that organisation, but it might just help you understand. Also, just resting assured that the current concept plans do include some louvers for privacy, increased privacy at the rear of the property as it faces back to you. And as Paul said, our chair said, the application has been considered and generally complies with the planning controls and standards that do apply to this land.
And yeah, we'll just say we're trying to say if we can get anybody coming to our side and explain to us, like we could hardly understand like how far away the building is going to be from our fence. Like it's only a 2D graph which we could hardly understand because it's full of terms, and we don't know what's the regulations about the distance between the buildings. Like the height, the shaping, yeah.
The controls are actually established under a state policy called the State Environmental Planning Policy number 65. So a lot of consideration has been given into the way these types of buildings need to be designed and to be consistent across different local government areas, and to ensure that the issues of privacy and amenity for those people who will be living in those dwellings, but also for those that surround them, get the benefit and are able to live harmoniously together. So as mentioned, you've already alluded to wanting to get some independent additional support. It would probably be worth your while just to help you understand more about what all of this means.
Yeah, that's just as what you just mentioned about the policy number 65. Like, first I didn't know that, and it may take me forever to read about that, to find the points we need to get from there. So that's what I say.
Well, Ms. Hahn, if I can just stop you there, I've got to advise you that your amenity and the impacts of this development have been considered thoroughly by the council officer in the report. And in relation to you not understanding this application, regrettably, it's not up to the council to provide you with independent advice about the impacts. It's rather, we invite you to make a submission to the council, which all councils in New South Wales do. There's a neighbour notification protocol, and you're given the opportunity to make those representations like you are today to us. But in relation to the finer details of how the law works and how these policies apply to your land, that is something that you have probably had ample time to research and to find advice about, because this application has been in for a little while. As I understand it, it's been in for...
What's its second go? So it's been in since July last year.
July 2018, I think.
Yes. Oh.
So it's been in for, well, the best part of nearly 2 years. So it's not as if you didn't know about this application. So I'll just see if Mr. Brockhoff has any questions. Mr. Brockhoff.
Yep, I've just unmuted myself, Chair. No, I have no further questions, and point to the council report for much of the advice the submission is seeking.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vardis, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes, just as a community representative, Ms. Hahn, I noticed you did come to the tribunal, the panel back in November, so you've had notice of these plans since then. And just to answer your question, there's a 6 metre setback between the property, excluding the balconies, and your property. So I would suggest you have a closer look at the plans. The only thing I would also suggest is you're concerned about the easement. You understand the easement runs with the land, and if the developer wants to change the easement, he needs your permission. And if you need to get legal advice, I would simply suggest you contact the Law Society, and they'll refer you to a solicitor experienced in dealing with easements, and he or she'll be able to advise you.
Okay, so I just Google Law Society.
All right, Ms. Hahn, that will conclude your submission. We have to move on. I think there's some pieces of advice there that you need to take on board and act upon. So we'll now move to the next speaker, Chao Ji.
Actually, I just totally agree with my neighbor.
Together? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, do you have anything further to say?
Actually, I'm not really supportive of this because we have already go through all the documents, but we are not the professional ones.
Oh.
So we just want to know some professional advice from.
Okay, so you have the same concerns as Ms. Hahn, correct?
Actually, to be honest, for this area, we can totally understand it's the developer area. But actually, if you can come to the area, you can see it's really heavy traffic and it's totally changed for our lifestyle, no matter for the house or for the apartment. So actually, we just think about this department is bringing to us too many noisy and too many things not under control. So that's our concern, and we just worry about this one. So we just want more time to connect with some professional people and give.
All right. So your submission is very close to what Ms. Hahn has said. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'll just see if there's any questions of the panel. Ms. Deege.
No further comment.
Okay. Mr. Brockhoff.
No further questions. Thanks. Thank you.
Mr. Vardis.
Nothing from me.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies, your matters will be taken on board when the council, when the panel, makes a determination. Can we move to the next speaker, which is Mr. William Caravellis from Cornerstone Design? You're the applicant to this DA, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you've heard the comments from the two objectors?
Yes, I have. Okay. If I can, just a couple of comments. The first objector just stated that it was that we were building 24 units. It's actually only 14. So just to clarify that. Also, as mentioned previously, the setback to their boundary is fully compliant with the provisions of the Apartment Design Guidance SEP 65, yep. And also the shadow diagrams also show that our shadows in midwinter, whilst they cut across their rear yards at some point, that don't actually reach the dwelling. So again, with the Apartment Design Guide provisions for solar access to our neighbours, that's fully compliant. And we're also the rear of our building that is adjacent to their property is approximately 2.7 metres below the maximum height limit. So we're fully compliant with the rear setback, and also 1 story below the maximum height limit allowed.
Okay.
And just finally, just in reference to the easement, that's a civil matter between the owner and the objector. But I'd just like to say that our client is fully aware of his responsibilities, and he's quite happy to pay for all whatever's required to move the easement at no expense to the landholders behind him at 12 and 12A.
Okay.
Grover Street.
All right. Thank you. Is that your submission, sir?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right. Thank you. I might call on Mr. Moroz to see if he has any further matters to raise. Certainly, we'll just reserve those questions for both of you after we've heard from Mr. Moroz, so we're not repeating things. So, Mr. Moroz, are you there?
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I am.
Okay. Is there anything further
Nothing
you need to raise?
No.
All right.
I don't.
Okay. You've looked at the conditions of development consent as proposed.
We raise no objection to them.
All right. Okay. Now, I have a question in relation to this ubiquitous lift overrun.
Yes.
What can you do to reduce that? At the moment, it's about 1.5, and I'm happy to hear submissions from either Mr. Caravellis or yourself, Mr. Moroz. But surely technology the way it is today and developments in lift construction, we can end up with a less impact in terms of that lift overrun.
Mr. Chair, I do appreciate. I think it's 1.58 metres over the height limit, the lift overrun. It is centrally located though, within the roof, I guess, roof plane. It's not, in our opinion, going to have a discernible impact from the street and neighbouring properties, given the substantial amount of separation this lift has, I guess, from both the street edge, I guess, and the neighbours. And yeah, I think when you are, because of the slope of the land from the street upwards towards the rear, I guess from the public domain, I guess along the street edge, the lift overrun itself will be indistinguishable.
That's looking east, but what about looking west? And this is from the street behind. And as I'm looking at the plans, I mean, surely you could have come up with another way of disguising or at least ameliorating the impact of this particular element on the roof. So I'd like you to talk to me about that.
From in terms of the visual impact from the rear, the building itself sits well below the maximum height prescribed by the LEP. The lift overrun then is further recessed into that roof line, well away, I guess, from any dividing boundary. I wouldn't say that it's going to unreasonably add to the visual scale of the building when viewed from that neighbouring properties, particularly when considering, I think, the residential component from along the rear, Mr. Chair, is approximately 2.7 metres below the maximum height limit, I guess, enabled for that building on the land.
Yeah, okay, that may be the case, but I'm asking whether or not there could be a design solution or a better outcome on the roof.
In terms of the location or the extent of...
The extent of the way this building, the finished product, Mr. Moroz.
Mr. Chair, if I may suggest, is there not a different type of lift that could be used that does not have the same level of overrun and where the mechanics of the lift are maybe in the basement, so a hydraulic lift or a different system?
Mr. Chair and panel members, I'll refer this over to William Caravellis in order to explain if there is an alternate.
There quite possibly is a lift that would have less of an overrun. Usually the requirement is approximately 4.2 metres from the top floor level to the top of the lift to allow for the slab on top. I mean, that might be able to be reduced slightly, but we're talking maybe 400 mil, not the 1.5 that we're over. If I can also say that lift overrun from the rear boundary it's 17 metres from the rear boundary, and with the landscaping we're proposing and the rooftop elements, I severely doubt that you would be able to see that from any of the dwellings at the rear. We could, if the panel thought so, we could do some architectural treatment to it to disguise it, but isn't
it the fact that and you know, my inspection of the locality is that you have the soccer fields in front of you on Trafalgar, and then to the west of the soccer fields you have a whole grouping of houses, dwellings, which look in an easterly direction. What I'm suggesting to you is that you need to perhaps establish some communication with, I don't know what lift company you're using. Is it Otis or Cone, or there's a whole range of lift companies that manufacture lifts. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a solution, a design solution for the lift overrun. Now, if the lift overrun is put there for maintenance purposes or servicing, isn't it?
Yes, and what the situation is, there needs to be a void. Once the lift car's at the top level, there needs to be a void between the lift car and the top of the lift overrun, in case you have someone maintaining the lift and someone accidentally pushes the lift button and it goes to the top. That there needs to be a void there so someone's not crushed.
Yeah, it'd be like a Mission Impossible show, wouldn't it? You've got
correct.
Tom Cruise going up the lift shaft. Anyway.
So this is, I mean,
without being jovial, are you in a position to at least explore how that lift overrun can be a lot less in terms of its height?
I mean, yes, we could ask the question. I mean, the size of that lift is pretty standard with what Otis and Schindler do. They're the two companies that we prefer to use, and that's coming from their design requirements.
All right. Okay. So if the panel was minded to grant consent and adopt the recommendation before us, and it was to impose a condition requiring you to do that, you don't see that would be problematic to you?
No, I mean,
Mr. Chair, Bernard Moroz here. If I could just make a comment. Yes, we will definitely be willing to explore it, but we just don't want to, advise both yourself and the panel members that, yes, something can definitely be done once we do approach the lift company. And if they say, well, that is the height that it needs to, protrude above that line, not being an expert in that field, it's very difficult for me to guarantee that outcome. But we are more than happy to ask the question. And then we're also more than happy to maybe treat that shaft with a different materiality in order to, I guess, try and alleviate any, visual impact resulting from the extent of overrun.
Well, I think the roof element is somewhat diminished because of this lift overrun, and it's literally, you've got a pimple on a pumpkin, more or less, and it's a shame that it's there, or it's so high. But anyway, I'll open up for discussion. I'll just see if Ms. Deegan has any questions. Ms. Deegan.
No, nothing further.
Mr. Brockhoff, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't, Chair.
Mr. Bartis, are you there?
I am, although I seem to have been frozen on the screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have no questions.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. And a decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. So I do thank you for your input.
Thank you, Mr.
Moving to the next item on the agenda, which is the Boardinghouse application for 565 King George's Road, Penshurst. We have a number of speakers for that one. Our first speaker is Rifat Gurgis and Gurgis Hannah. Are you both there? Mr. Gurgis, are you there?
I think they might be muted. I've unmuted them this end, but if you could just take your mute off at your end, please.
Yep, I did.
Mr. Gurgis, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And Mrs. Hannah, are you're there as well?
Yes, we are. It's Rami, and I'm here with my mum because her English is not very good. But yes, we are. Thank you.
That's fine, sir. That's not a problem. Just we'll give you enough time to make your submission. So, who would like to go first, Mr. Gurgis? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please proceed, sir.
I strongly support this development. I live in the area for over 35 years, and I am now 74 years old, and need an affordable accommodation like that. As I like Penshurst, and I am vice chair of the directors of St. George Migrant Resource Center, which is now changed the name to ADS. We locate in Harrisville. We look after disabled, old, new immigrant, and disadvantaged people who all need affordable house like this one, as one bedrooms, independent accommodation. And the development, I think it is near the train and the buses. Another thing, both the council and state federal government support, encourage development, productivity and investment, and create jobs during coronavirus, as you all of us knows. So please refer to Georges River Council Public Notice 30 of April 2020 and the New South Wales Part of Planning, Industry and Environment Planning System Acceleration Program, which both support development applications and rezoning and to boost the construction and fast track new projects. So briefly, I strongly support this development, and I'm completely strongly reject statement number 7 of refusal reason, saying the development is not considered to be in public interest. No, it is not, because it is for public interest to have something affordable housing like that. So many of the community strongly, and I spoke to many of them, they are very strongly support such development. So I hope you support this development to be approved, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Just hold on the line there and I'll see if there are any questions of the panel. Ms. Deegan.
No, I have no comment or question, thank you.
Mr. Brockhoff.
No, I have no questions.
And finally, Mr. Vardis, do you have any comments or questions?
I have no questions or comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Georges. We'll now move to our next speaker, which is it Georges Hanna? Is that correct?
Ahsan, yeah, Ahsan Usa.
Assam Yusuf, is that correct?
Usa, that's right, yes.
Okay, sorry,
yeah,
I'm doing my best to try and get your name correctly
No,
pronounced,
thank
sir.
you so much. It's very hard to pronounce. Thank you so much for that.
No, that's okay. And you're also, there's someone else there with you as well?
Yeah, well, my name is Rami, and
Right.
my mom, that's
Is
her
Assam.
name, Ahsan, that's right, yeah.
Right.
But her English is worse than my English, so sorry about that.
No, that's all right, sir. Okay, so would you like to proceed?
Yeah, sure. But let me first, I just want to say thank you so much for having us on the panel. And I really appreciate the way you handle the situation from the previous talk with other people. Thank you so much. Now, I know you have heard this so many times, but we really, with my mom, she want to, like, there's some points that we have to put forward to you, and some of them maybe it was kind hard. It will help us to get this application approved. Now, my mom, right, and I'm like, we're really sorry, we put this like last night, and she's not good at this and I'm not that good at this, so I hope we make sense of what I say. Now, my mom, she's 75 years old, right? She took all her superannuation money, which is almost halved with that coronavirus thing. So to start off with, like, the money has already halved, okay? But it's enough to get this building up and running. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, like my mom, she's old, she's single, and she lives by herself, and not just physically but mentally as well. She needs this project to be going right now. To make the I'm not sure if to make the matters worse or it will help the situation. It happened that I used to work for Leighton Contractors, a big, as you understand, it's a big building company. They let me go 2 months ago, and my saving is also running out very, very fast. So by having this construction approved, it's not going to just help my mom financially, but it will also sort of give me a job instead of going on the government welfare and taking money from the taxpayers. I've never took money from taxpayers, and neither my mom, she never took money from taxpayers, right? So and also this project, like as Rifat was saying, which is also a good point, it's financially it's gonna give work for some people, including myself, my mom, and a lot of other subcontractors and laborers and workers. So we are helping, as much as we can, and put all that aside, right? It will help, like as a human being. And,
all right, Rami,
yes,
Mr. Yusuf, if I can just interrupt you, and I don't want to cut you off, but what I'd like you to do is, have you had a chance to read the assessment report which is on the agenda?
we've had a quick read of it, yes.
Okay, well, can I suggest you need to have a more in-depth read of it? Sure. Because it's currently facing, with a recommendation facing the panel today to refuse your application on a number of grounds, in particular traffic grounds.
Yeah.
Now, have you taken advice from a professional town planner and a traffic engineer about any proposed redesigning of this particular development? Because as it stands now, it's not being supported by Transport for New South Wales on a arterial road. Okay, which is King George's Road. Now, hang on. You need to take on board what those comments are, because clearly the design of your development is not in accordance with those requirements, and as a result, it's been recommended for refusal. Now, we take on board, we all understand the acceleration program. We all understand the COVID-19 problem that the planet's in. And we understand that you're, financially at odds with your situation to build this to build this project. You need this will be a bit of an injection for you and your mother to move forward. Well, we understand that, but in terms of the planning side of things, this development, as it's currently proposed, is not recommended for approval. And I'm just wondering what you can tell us about your ability to address the issues raised in this report.
Well, Mr. Paul, we've got Yusuf, I believe, he's our architect, as he's on the phone as well.
Right.
And I'm sure he will address the technical of the submission. Right.
All right.
However, I just want to make a point very clear, that whatever needs to be done, right, whenever needs to be amended, we are happy to amend. And if we, and then if you like to defer the determination until we amend what you need, and we can resubmit, give you some time to have a look at it, and we supply all the things that you want us to do.
Right.
And I just want to point that out, but the architect Yusuf, he's he's on a panel, but he already has amended the plans as well. So some of the
that's
things
correct.
that, it has been amended. But if you want us to amend anything further, we are happy to do that as well.
All right.
So I believe we have amended the plans.
How about you hold on there for a second, and I'll I might just keep you in abeyance for the moment, and can we have Assam Yusuf? Are you there, sir?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I don't want to repeat myself, but the report is not favouring this application because of issues concerning traffic and a number of design issues that need to be addressed as well. What do you say about that?
Well, good afternoon. To start with, I would like to say that we have tried unsuccessfully several times since March 2020 to include the latest amendments into the assessment process. In the latest amendment plans, LPP 01 dated 12th of May 2020, which is attached to my submission, we have tried to address all issues and concerns raised through the assessment process. We believe that the proposal is compliant with all relevant planning objectives and controls. Nonetheless, we welcome the opportunity to address further issues and concerns. As a way to move further forward to reduce the bulk of the proposal, we are willing to reduce the number of boarding rooms from 12 to 11 rooms as a part of a deferred assessment, or much preferred deferred commencement approval. This reduction is possible by removing room number 7 on the western side of the first level. I'm happy to answer any further question and concern from the panel members. Regarding the access driveway, the Transport New South Wales is recommending refusal because the drawing didn't show the bonnet well inside the footpath. That's not the usual case. Regardless, we are amending the plan. We showed auto track simulation on the amended plan, and it shows clearly it can be done. The access driveway is compliant with 2890.1 regarding access driveway, and the condition can impose that only left turn can be done on when you exit the state. So it can be easier if we impose left turn only to exit the state.
All right.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy to take any question.
Yeah. Well, just I should have both the owner and you on the line still. Is that correct?
Yes, we're still on the line. Yes.
All right. Just hold on.
Yes, sure.
Ms. Deegan, do you have any comments or questions?
So you would be satisfied with having a left in and left out only access arrangement imposed if the application was to proceed?
Yes, I am. Yes, we are.
Okay, that's all for me for now.
Okay, Mr. Brockhoff.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I think it's a fundamental issue is to have unconstrained access into and out of the property, given that King George's Road is such a major thoroughfare. Clearly, Transport for New South Wales are concerned about cars having to slow down, stop, be stationary in the left-hand lane as they manoeuvre in or try to avoid a vehicle exiting your property. So the critical issue there on this busy road is to have smooth traffic flow into and out of the property if there's vehicle movements happening at the same time, and reduce that conflict. And it appears that Transport for New South Wales would like to see clear evidence of the ability for a vehicle to stay within the setback on your property, wait as another vehicle enters the property before the first vehicle leaves, and that requires space at the entrance to the property on the driveway in the southeast corner of the floor plan. That may well require design modification of the southeast corner of the floor plate of the ground floor. That will have flow-on implications in terms of yield, in terms of the layout of the ground floor, and possibly even the first floor. And then once that issue, if it can be addressed, and it can be demonstrably addressed, there are still some flow-on issues from the any design changes to take that matter into account, and then we would deal with some further issues that I'd also like to ask questions about in terms of solar access to the common room, and in terms of what the implication of reducing the yield from 12 to 11 would have on car parking, and whether that would free up space for landscaping in the rear of the property. But I've talked too long there. Could I pass back to Paul and see if we can have some of those questions addressed?
Gentlemen,
Yes.
are you
Yes.
you're aware of what? Well, firstly, hang on. Before you answer that, I'll just ask Mr. Vardis. Mr. Vardis, do you have any questions?
No, just well, sorry. Yes, I do have a question. I take it from what the applicant's representative has said is that he's willing to, and the owners are willing to amend the plans to address the issues, particularly as to traffic, and you're seeking a deferral of our determination so that you can comply with those requirements. Is that the case?
Yes, it is. As we asking for that, we on the latest amendments plans, we show a stimulation, auto track simulation that shows clearly that the vehicles can exit to the right direction, right? If you look to the latest amendment plan, but nevertheless, we're happy if the council impose a condition that it's only left turn only to enter or exit the property. As for the solar access, we're sitting back 3.6 from the southern boundary. The overshadow diagram showing clearly that we're not affecting the southern side property all the year around. It's not there's no overshadowing at all. As we and in regarding the common area, we opened on the latest amended plan. We opened a window from the northern side, which is not overshadowed all year around as well. That window is getting 9 hours in winter time. The problem is the council assessed the application on the drawings back on February and didn't take in account any amendment plans further, like this window, the change of the window, the opening of the north window and the communal room.
Mr. Youssef, can I suggest that the council has to allow you to make amendments, and they didn't. Now, what we're suggesting, firstly, can I ask, what are your qualifications, Mr.
Well,
Youssef? I mean, these plans seem to be drawn by you. Are you also a town planner?
Yes, we are. Our service include town planning and engineering. We've got engineering license. We've got the building design license as well.
So there's someone in your organisation as a town planner?
Yes. Yes, I am as well.
You're a town planner, and you're also a draftsman or an architect?
It's our company is A to Z. So where we are I'm engineering. I've got engineering qualification back in 35 years ago, and I've done building design diploma, and we've done a graduate diploma in town planning.
All right. Who is your traffic engineer?
Yes, I'm as well. I'm a qualified traffic engineer as well.
Okay. All right. So a bit of a one-stop shop. You've got everything.
Yes, I'm trying my best, and it's clearly the access driveway is complying with 2890.1. The problem was the simulation, the auto track simulation wasn't showing the bonnet outside the property. That was the reason why the traffic transport in New South Wales rejected that.
All right. you in a position to get your work peer reviewed by anyone?
Sorry, say again, please.
Are you in a position to have your work peer reviewed? So in other words, have your traffic assessment peer reviewed and your plans and your town planning report peer reviewed?
Yes, we appreciate that. As per the latest amended plans LPP 01, dated 12th of May, 2020.
Okay, I'll just see if there are any further questions. Ms. Deegan.
Yeah, no, I have no further questions.
Mr. Brockhoff.
Yes, I do. Look, if the swept path and the turning conflicts on King George's Road were able to be resolved, there would be flow-on effects to the design that would have questions that I'd like to address, particularly to do with what effect would the changes mean on yield? What effect would those changes yield on parking requirements? How would that mean a reorganisation of parking to the rear of the property? Would there be the opportunity for improved landscaping and improved vehicle manoeuvring space to avoid conflict in the actual driveway itself? So there are flow-on effects, Chair, that I'd like to inquire if the threshold issue of turning conflicts at King George's Road was able to be resolved.
Yes, well, we're happy to create 2-meter soft landscape at the back of the property. And as we are removing one extra room from the top, we can free solar access to the common communal area outside, private open space, and we can include the area for the disabled, the shared area, as part of the landscape. It can be grassed as well. That's why we can freeze more for the landscape at the back, 2 meter and more.
All right. Okay. I think Mr. Vardis, do you have any final comments?
Nothing further from me,
questions?
Chair. No.
All right, gentlemen. I think that's about as far as we can take it today. A decision will be taken later today and posted on the council's website. I do thank you for your input and your attendance today.
All right, Bob, thank you so much. And thank you for the panel. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Moving to the last item on our agenda, it's the shop top housing development at 28 Princes Highway, Cogra. I understand we've got Mr. Jim Apostologlu here. Mr. Apostolou, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is there anything you need to say or address the panel on?
Just here to answer any questions of the panel.
All right. I don't have any questions in relation to this development. I've read the report and I'm aware of the recommendation before us.
Okay.
Ms. Deegan, do you have any questions?
No, I've got no additional questions.
Mr. Brockhoff?
No questions.
And Mr. Vardis?
Nothing from me.
All right. Well, Mr. Apostolou, thank you for your attendance, and the decision will be taken later today and published on the council's website. I understand that is all of the matters before the panel today, and I thank everyone for their attendance, and I declare that the Georges River Local Planning Panel meeting of the 21st of May 2020 now concluded. The open session of the panel meeting concluded at 5:19 p.m. Thank you, one and all.